With young stars like Julio Rodriguez and Jackson Chourio struggling, and veterans like Jacob deGrom and Kevin Gausman thriving, what do we do with them? Today, we're talking about must-trade for and away players on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino, riding solo today. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit the little bell below. It's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you do that for us as well. And I mentioned it up top, guys. Today we're talking trades. We're talking about guys you need to trade for, guys you need to get off of your team and maximize that value as soon as you can. And, let's roll into it, man. We got some struggling stars. We're going to talk about those guys first, and you need to go out there and trade for them while you still can. And this guy we got up first is a guy I love, but you know what? He's been struggling a bit. It's the Bach, Mr. Spencer Schwellenbach of those Atlanta Braves. He started off the season like a house on fire, was absolutely killing it. Has had a few bad starts here, though, of late, right? And that's kind of, been holding him back from, achieving that acehood that, we all know he's capable of, right? So over his last 4 starts, has 2 really bad ones and 1 mediocre start. The 2 really bad starts back on April 15th. He went 4.2 innings. He had only 3 strikeouts, gave up a bunch of runs, just got spanked around. And then his last outing against the Dodgers was not much better than that. 3.2 innings, only 4 strikeouts, gave up 6 runs. Those 2 starts specifically have really made Schwellenbach's numbers look pretty bad. He's had some really good starts. His second start of the season went 8 strong innings against Miami, got the win, 10 strikeouts. After that, his second start against Philly was pretty good, only gave 1 earned run, 6 innings, 5 strikeouts. On April 21st against St. Louis, 7 innings, 5 strikeouts, couple earned, strong whip, and he has 5 out of his 7 starts are quality starts. I love Spencer Schwellenbach, but you know what? Some owners might be feeling a little bit of fatigue. We had to pay up for a decent price for Schwellenbach. The price was rising the closer we got to, draft day. 3.92 ERA in the season for Schwellenbach, and, under a K per 9. I think those are going to get corrected, man. I think Schwellenbach's going to be, a low 3s ERA kind of guy over that K per 9. The control's still been really good for Schwellenbach. I think he's in a little bit of rough patch here, and his next start is against Cincinnati at home on May 8th. I think it's a good one out there for Schwellenbach. So I think while that ERA is still high 3s and that K per 9 still under, I think we go out there and try. And he only has 1 win, for this Braves team that he should win some games there for, this season. I'm going out there. I'm trying to acquire Schwellenbach. I think the Schwellenbach owner, as I said, might be a little bit miffed, fatigued, and if they have better options than Schwellenbach on the team, you might be able to get him 90 cents on the dollar, 85 cents on the dollar. I'm paying that right now. I'll pay that for Schwellenbach. Any kind of discount on a guy like this, who could really just get it going. He could go out there, next time against, like I said, Cincinnati, have a 10 strikeout game, 7 innings, give up a run or 2, and the control, like I said, has been really good. And then that buying window is going to get a bit smaller and smaller until eventually I think we'll get super, super closed on a guy like Spencer Schwellenbach because, he has great stuff. He, gets the ball past pitchers, had a really strong showing last year, finished last year very, very strong. I think a guy like Schwellenbach is going to be very, very good for fantasy purposes down the stretch. Acquire him now, like I said, while you still can. Let's move on to this next guy who I don't think is as much of a sure thing, but I still believe. Roki Sasaki of the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm going out there. I'm trying to acquire him right now. He's just been I want to say bad, but just mediocre, man. Just very, very mediocre. Roki Sasaki's last 2 starts have been, bad. 5.2 innings, against the Pirates on the 26th. Wasn't a great start. Gave up 3 runs. The whip wasn't great, only 4 strikeouts. And the start against the Braves, Sasaki's most recent start, Yeah, so with Sasaki, basically, there's better days ahead, right? I truly think that he had a three start stretch between April 5th and April 19th where he was solid. He wasn't great, but he was solid. Especially against a start against the Cubs on April 12th, 5 innings, 3 strikeouts, 1 earned run. Whip was okay, could have been better. And then after that, at Texas on April 19th, 6 innings, 4 strikeouts, couple earned runs, really good whip. Sasaki's only quality start of the season. Like I said, this guy was an ace, overseas, before he came over. I don't think he has Yamamoto or at this point even Senga type upside, but I think Sasaki can find his groove. He has good stuff. Like I said, it's just a matter of, a guy like Sasaki, getting in his groove, right? And sometimes it takes a little bit more time to get into your groove, coming overseas, you're moving to a new place, new teammates, new pitching staff, coaching staff, and just a lot of stuff to deal with, right? So he's a young kid. He's still only 23, right? I don't even think, most people realize how young Sasaki still is. I think he's going to find his footing in the bigs sooner than later, right? And I think right now for Sasaki, you could pay 60 cents on the dollar, maybe. I think there's a lot of Sasaki owners, like, even more than Schwellenbach owners who are panicking because Sasaki was another guy. His price was really high when, he first got signed and everything like that started to fall down. I think he was like a top 30, 40 starting pitcher towards the end of, when things are said or done. But still, that's your SP3, 4. And on the year, Sasaki, 7 starts, 1 win, 3.86 ERA, 1.45 whip, 30 innings, 24 strikeouts. Numbers don't look great. So if you can go out there and get a guy like Sasaki, 60 cents on the dollar, maybe 65 cents on the dollar, 70, I'll go up to for a guy like Sasaki. I'm not going to overpay and go crazy. But if you can get him cheap, if you can trade him for, one starting pitcher that kind of came out of nowhere, maybe one of these guys we're talking about later on this episode, I'd go out there and do that. He pitches for the Dodgers, great team. He's going to win some games if he can start giving us a little bit more length into his starts, which I think he can do. Like I said, over the last 4 starts, Sasaki, it's 5 innings, 6 innings, 5.2 innings, and 5 innings. We're on the right track here. I don't know if he's ever going to be over a K per 9 kind of guy. I don't know if he ever gets up that high with the strikeouts, but I think the ERA is going to eventually be really good. I think he figures the whip situation out, which I think is going to be really good. The numbers at the end of the year might not look, super great, but can he pitch to a low 3s ERA? I want to say like a 105 to like 108 whip with, around a K per 9, maybe a slight a bit under. Yeah, I think Sasaki can definitely do that. So Sasaki is another guy that I'm, going to try and buy low on at the moment. Let's sneak this one more guy in here. Let's talk about J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez, Seattle Mariners outfielder, all-star. One of the better players in the game, off to a slow start. I'll say this, it's almost every year of Julio's career so far, he gets off to a start like this. He's the hitter version of Blake Snell. I think it's gonna maybe be a thing, kind of seems that way. Julio's still young. This is only his 4th full season in the bigs. So I truly don't know, if this is gonna be an every year thing, but I'm gonna give you his splits, right? His monthly splits throughout his career, right? So April, March, 229 hitter over 424 at-bats with 10 homers, 44 RBIs, a lot of steals, though. May, he starts heating up a little bit, in his career, 278 hitter, 349 at-bats, 16 steals, and, he was pretty good. Slows down a little bit in June, 236 hitter over that time, with 13 home runs, 309 at-bats. But look at the rest of this, right? Look at the rest of, Julio's season, right? His career, we're doing his career splits month by month. So July over his career, 301 batter with 13 homers and 9 steals, 229 at-bats. August, 224 at-bats throughout his career, 12 homers, 47 RBIs, 13 steals, 320 hitter. And then in September, October, throughout his career, 309 at-bats with 22 home runs, 61 runs, 10 steals, 304 batter. Julio's a summer guy. He likes to play in the warm weather. I honestly think it's not going to be much different this year. Another young guy, still only 24 years old. I'll say this. Any of the 3 guys I just spoke about, Sasaki, Julio, Schwellenbach, all super young. I'm going out there trying to buy in dynasty leagues too. I'm mainly talking about redraft when I'm saying buying 60 cents on the dollar, 80 cents on the dollar. Redraft, these guys might be a little bit harder to get, but if you can go out there, find a frustrated Julio owner and pay 90 cents on the dollar in a dynasty league where you get Julio for the rest of his career, I'm doing that. Schwellenbach, same thing. Sasaki's probably a little bit more risky than the other two, but definitely make those moves. And I'll say this, the guy that's coming up next, not going to give you the name because I want you to stick around and find out. He's another guy that if you could buy in dynasty leagues, I'm doing it. I'll give you some of the guys later on that, we're selling. We're going to talk a little bit of Kevin Gausman, maybe a little Casey Mize and Willy Adames. So those names and more coming up next. And all right, guys, I want to talk to you folks about my friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. So are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shell variety, and guys, it's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk on a road trip or if I just need a quick protein boost. And guys, I always say this, my dad is honestly who turned me on to Wonderful Pistachios. So whenever I'm at his house, he always has a bag, and I'm grabbing a couple handfuls. So Dad, if you're listening, I apologize, but those pistachios are just so good. So you know what, and if you're a little different than myself and you love cracking open the shell variety, it's super satisfying for with the crunch. The in-shell varieties are a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more today. And all right, guys, before we move on and jump back into the episodes, one more thing I want to mention. If you're looking for that competitive edge over your league mates in your fantasy league, if you're struggling, and even if you're winning and you just want to show off a little bit, you want to talk with Matt and I about how good you're doing, join us over on the Subtext platform. It's an in-depth, personalized experience where you're going to get text messaging alerts going to your phone, offering so much more than we can in these 30-minute episodes, including prospect call-up alerts. And guys, with Roman Anthony, Marcelo Mayer, Andrew Painter, and Matt did a great prospect episode yesterday where he broke down a bunch of great prospects who might be getting the call soon. Check that episode out if you haven't already. We're gonna send you that text message notification when any of those guys get called up, so you're gonna be able to beat your league to the waiver wire. And guess what? When we do our waiver wire ranking episodes, with the players that you should pick up, we give you a ranking with those to tell you how to prioritize all of those names in the order you should be picking them up in. And even if you need a question about a trade, something like that, Matt and I are gonna get back to you on the Subtext platform. So the link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms if you are interested in joining us there. And all right, guys, we're going to keep things pushing. And this next name, as I told you, name that you should try and acquire in Dynasty if you can. You might not be able to, though. Jackson Chourio, off to a tough start this year. Not horrible, but we expected more. We expected more from the 21-year-old. And that sounds bad saying like that, but after he had the year he did last year, we had high expectations for Jackson Chourio this year. So far through 35 games, Chourio has 153 at-bats, 23 runs, 12 doubles, 6 homers, 24 RBIs, couple steals, 255 batting average. Also, 33 strikeouts to only 2 walks. The plate discipline has been atrocious for the young Chourio. Plays for those Milwaukee Brewers, once again, in case you guys did not know or, you forgot. So with Chourio, it's a big buying window here, I think. I think people were, expecting a bit more from him, only the 2 steals. 6 homers are nice. I'll take the 6 homers in 35 games. That's a great pace. We'll take that. And the runs and RBIs aren't horrible. But you know what? You go out there and shoot the offer to the Chourio owner. Maybe they went high on outfielders. Maybe they took Chourio as their second outfielder, and they have an outfielder one that's doing really well, and they're able to sell on Chourio, and they need pitching. Just mentioning it because if you haven't been paying attention, they might look at the 255 batting average. If you're playing the points leagues, the strikeouts are killing you. And only 2 steals. So I go out there, shoot the Chourio owner an offer. This one isn't as on the level of the other 3 I had spoke about as far as struggling, because Chourio's numbers aren't atrocious, but I still think in a glimpse, if the Chourio owner is not paying super attention and they look at those numbers, they might be like, oh, the batting average is low, doesn't have a lot of steals, he's striking out a lot. You might be able to talk them into a trade. Chourio's a guy I'd pay up to 95 cents on the dollar. If you can get him for 90 cents on the dollar, that works out really good for you. Keeper dynasty formats, it's probably a big no-no. I don't think there's going to be a lot of Jackson Chourio owners that are going to sell. But hey, once again, if you could pay 97 cents on the dollar for a guy like Chourio in a dynasty league, I'm doing that too, just because I think the talent here with Chourio at 21 years old is undeniable. I just think the kid is an absolute monster. And, he's going to be very, very good for a very long time. So like I said, it's not often we get a talent like this, like the Jackson Chourio, where the power is legit, the speed's legit. Could just be one of the next studs in the game. We could be talking about Chourio as a first-round pick next year. Don't get me wrong. He's really that good. But he's still off to a mediocre start, so let's buy low if we can on Jackson Chourio. Last, buy low guy here. Let's talk about Yordan Alvarez. And the thing is, as I'm talking about this, he, has hit the injured list. So we're not paying as much as, we might have a couple of days ago, right? Head to the IL, hand issue. They don't seem too worried about it, right? They really don't. The biggest reports are saying that it might be a minimal stint here for Yordan on the IL. But you know what? This might be something that's been bothering Yordan all year, because his first 29 games of the season, 210 batting average, 7 runs, 3 homers, 18 RBIs, and a steal. Not exactly what you're looking for out of a guy like Yordan, who's supposed to be a big time slugger and give you great numbers. The Astros this year, not too shabby, right? If I remember correctly, I don't really love to keep up with the Astros. Yeah, not too shabby. 17-17, kind of mediocre. I don't think the counting stats are going to be great for Alvarez, like that happened in past years. But he's a guy, like I said, the frustration early on is getting to all of us. I know I have a couple of teams that are underperforming that I'm frustrated with right now, and I want to stay calm, cool, and collected. I want to go out and acquire guys like the Alvarez's if I have room on my IL and I could wait a little bit for him to come back. I want to go and get the Julios and the Schwellenbachs and all these guys we're talking about today, right? So let's see what's going on. Like I said, the quote from manager Joe Espada was that he did not seem too concerned. So let's see how it goes. I don't think he's going to be out too long. This is a guy you might be able to get for 70 cents on the dollar right now, Yordan Alvarez. And he's a guy that can go out, hit 30 home runs and have 80 RBIs the rest of the way and hit 300. So, once again, not going to go too crazy trying to acquire a guy like Alvarez. But you know what? Like I said, if I can get him on the cheap, I'm going out there and doing it. Alvarez is an all-star, proven stud. It's not a talent issue here. It's just a little bit of an injury issue, and it's still early in the season. Let's talk about guys that we need to get off of our teams, right? And this first one is an interesting one. I think I mentioned him up at the top, and we're going back into him. It's Jacob deGrom. And the thing here with deGrom is, he's been pretty good, but I don't know if he's going to be able to keep it up, for a full season. I'll say this. I did kind of throw out the idea that deGrom could be this year's Chris Sale. I don't know if he'll be that good, but you know what? On the season, 7 starts, 2 wins, 2.61 ERA, a clean 1 whip, 38 innings pitched, 36 strikeouts for, the veteran all-star in Jacob deGrom here. Has been better of late. His last 4 starts have been stellar. So that's why I'm trying to trade him, man. I'm trying to get deGrom for equal value. If you can get, a top 20 starting pitcher for deGrom, I would like to do that. But it's just tough because he can be this year's Chris Sale. I think there's still a potential that he can do it. I just don't know how likely it is. And that's why I'm going to try and get up out under deGrom while I can. Let's do this. You know what? Because people always like to hear names when we're having these kind of conversations. Let me throw out a couple of names that I would go out there and I would try and sell Jacob deGrom for. One is definitely Cole Ragans. I got to say about Cole Ragans, man. He's. I know his last start was really good. 11 strikeouts over 5. But I don't think his numbers on the season still match up with how good, Cole Ragans can be. So I definitely, if I can do deGrom for Ragans, I'll do that. I don't know how many leagues are going to be able to get that done. You might have to throw something else in there. Might have to throw another piece into that trade, but I'm doing that. Maybe even a Hunter Brown, right? I don't know if the Hunter Brown owner is going to want to do that either. But if I can go out there and get a guy like Hunter Brown, who's been stellar this year, trying to think about who else we can go out there and try and acquire for deGrom. Maybe we even do a couple struggling guys, right? Maybe as we play the name game here, who's been struggling this season. I don't think you're going to be able to do a Zach Wheeler. Yeah, you know what? As I'm looking at Cole Ragans, 3.79 ERA, 1.15 whip on the year. Yeah, that's one you can go out there and do. Dylan Cease, probably not. I probably hold deGrom. Corbin Burns, if you can get a Corbin Burns trade for deGrom, I'm doing that. Corbin Burns is supposed to make a start this week. I don't know if we have the day yet, but Tori Lavulo, Diamondbacks manager, came out and said that Burns is supposed to make a start this week. So I'm aiming for guys like that, guys that I know are really good. Even a Schwellenbach, that's an interesting one. We were talking about him earlier. deGrom for Schwellenbach, I might do that as well. So, like I said, deGrom might be this year's Chris Sale. He might have a monster year, but just him getting up over 100 innings hasn't happened in a long time. So I'm not banking on it. But guys, we got Gausman, Willy Adames, and more names coming up next. So stay locked on. And I just need to talk to you guys about my friends over at Supply House real quick. So you need to get the supplies that you need, from the site that's made for the skilled trade, Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. The easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory, over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. And once again, that's going to be on supplyhouse.com. And all right, guys, let's keep things moving here and let's talk about Kevin Gausman. I think he might have been on this episode recently, but I'm doubling down here on Gausman at 34 years old. And, you say, Dom, we just talked about deGrom, who was older. And, you said, hey, he could be really good this year. I don't feel the same about Gausman. I don't think he's going to be very good this year. Last year, kind of we saw, the wheel starting to fall off a bit. And I think it's continuing this year through 7 starts for Gausman this season. Of course, this is pitches for those Blue Jays, 3.83 ERA, 40 innings, 37 strikeouts. And the whip's actually been pretty good at a 0.92. I just don't think that continues. I think the whip is going to, go up. I think the ERA is going to stay elevated. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get back to over that K per 9 that he's always done. I just don't see it. If you got, I know there's some veteran fantasy players out there. If you got one of those guys in your league that believe in the glory heydays of Gausman, back of the circa 2021 days, and he was even really good as recent as 2023. I'm just not really a firm believer in a Kevin Gausman at age 34. Continuing to be dominant. I think the whip, like I said, is not going to stay this good. And even if you look at all the underlying stuff, it doesn't really look great for him. He's not getting a lot of whiffs. He's getting barreled up. He's getting hit pretty hard, not getting a lot of ground balls. And as far as his pitches themselves go, the velocity on the fastball is actually up a bit. He actually is seeing better results on that. The slider, has never really been one of his better pitches, as far as, getting hit and put in play. But he hasn't been really throwing the sinker at all. Pitch mix looks fairly similar, a bit more. We're seeing a bit more of the fastball this year, a bit less of the split finger, and actually a bit more of the slider. So, Gausman's pitch mix does look a little different than last year. It could potentially be a bit better than last year, but if somebody's believing in the bounce back of an ace type Kevin Gausman, I'd capitalize on that where I can. I don't think he's going to be over that K per 9, as I mentioned. Not getting the results on the pitches that would indicate that. And, like I said, maybe the whip is better than it was last year, but he's a career 1.25 whip guy over 1,700 innings. So that's not something I'm going to be banking on as well here with Kevin Gausman. So I'm selling where I can on Gausman. That's basically bottom line there on him. Let's move on to this next guy. Let's talk some Casey Mize. With Casey Mize, former number 1 overall pick, top pitching prospect in all of baseball at one point in his career. is having a solid year, but another guy just not buying into it, man. I'm really not. With Mize through his first 6 starts, it's a 2.70 ERA, 36 innings, 27 strikeouts, and a 1.09 WHIP. He looks a little bit better, than he has in past years. It's just another dude that he's never going to be a K per 9 kind of guy. I know Detroit's been really good this year, so he definitely has the potential to, win games, as he already does have 5 wins, which is, a lot through his first 6. I just don't think he keeps it up at that rate. I don't know if he's going to be able to continuously pitch, this deep into games. It's just a case where overperforming. His next start is at Colorado even, and his last start was pretty bad. For Mize, even though he did pick up the win, he 4 runs, 7 hits, only 4 strikeouts. And that's against an Angels team that isn't really good. So especially if he goes out against the Rockies and still has a bad game, his overall numbers will still look good enough that you might be able to move Casey Mize and get at least something decent back for him. The underlying stuff, interesting, for Mize. Some of it looks good, some of it looks, bad. He's getting a lot of ground balls. He's getting some whiffs. The underlying stuff as far as ERA looks really good, but he's not getting, the fastball, is not really moving as much as we wanted to, but it's getting good results though. So it's not too much to knock. His pitch mix looks pretty different than last year. He's throwing that split finger, a bit more, backed off of, the slider a bit than he did last year. So I like to see that. But once again, I still just don't think, Casey Mize is going to be able to keep up this kind of performance. So if you get someone in your league that's a big believer in Mize, go out there and, once again, move on while we can, just because, like I said, the exit velocity doesn't look great. Like you said, he's getting hit pretty hard. He's not getting, he's getting whiffs, but he's not getting guys to chase. He's getting barreled up a bit. If the starts at home are going to be fine because Detroit's a big park. But once he goes away, these might be starting to turn into, some home runs here. So I'm not buying too much into Casey Mize, continuing to put up these ace-like numbers. Can he still be good? Can he still pitch to a mid-3s ERA with like a 110 whip and under a K per 9 and win games? Yes, of course. When I'm telling you to sell these guys doesn't mean I hate them and I don't think they'll be useful for fantasy. It's just capitalize on how they're performing now, because I don't think they'll be able to continue these kinds of performances. Let's move on to Willy Adames, right? Willy Adames, Matt and I never really believed in him. The numbers on the year don't look sexy, but I'm trying to give you the window to sell, right? I'm trying to tell you, hey, listen, he's been better of late. This is where we can sell. If you made the mistake of drafting Adames, here's your opportunity. Last 14 days for Adames. 46 at-bats, 8 runs, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, a steal, 283 batting average. That's what you sell on. The Giants aren't really great for, fantasy purposes. I don't think he's going to drive in a lot of runs or score a lot of runs. It's going to be harder for Adames to hit home runs. Literally on May 4th, he hit 2 home runs. That's half of his home runs for the season. I don't think he's going to be able to produce like he did last year. Adames had a career year last year. He's not really super fast. Career year of 21 steals. Don't think he's going to steal bases like that. Definitely not going to hit 32 home runs or have 112 RBIs this year. And he's he's career 247 guy. Batting average might come up a smidge. Just still not believing in it too much. He had 217 in 2023 and he had 238 in 2022. So there's a track record here with a guy like Adames of, not being great. It was a contract year at 28 years old for Adames, and he said he's going to put his head down and just, show out and do everything he could do to get that, big contract, which he did. I just think at 29, in San Francisco, I mentioned, everything with Adames as far as he's not fast, he's not going to steal bags. Batting averages are going to be great. The power's not going to be there. The counting stats aren't going to be there what they were last year. So you say, hey, listen, Adames has been hot. He's heating up, and that's what you use, to get up out of Willy Adames and trade him now while you can. But guys, that's going to be all for today. Shout out to our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And guys, after you make us your first listen, go and check out our boy Sully over at Locked On MLB and make him your second listen. He does a great job of covering the league in a bit of a different way than we do, as where we put our fantasy take on things. Sully does more of a straightforward take, covering all the teams in the league, doing a great job over there. So go and check him out. And guys, just truly want to thank you for, watching. It means a lot to Matt and I to be able to sit and do this and, do these episodes and talk fantasy baseball with all of you guys. It's been a passion of ours for our whole life, and it means so much that you guys support us doing this. But guys, until next time, sorry.